You're listening to the audio-only version of Cocktails with Cav, the popular video cast streamed live only on X. Follow us here on Spotify or on X at Cav Literature. How's everybody doing this Monday? I tell you, we have a big ice storm coming here down in New Orleans, and Tuesday and Wednesday, we're not equipped for it. I'm just going to let everybody know now. We're not used to it. People around here lose their minds the second any ice occurs. So we're definitely not prepared. Other than hunker down, I have plenty of whiskey so I can keep doing the Cocktails with Cav show. That's my survival kit. And I even saw a meme today I thought was hilarious. It was, people in Louisiana and New Orleans getting ready for this winter weather. We have our beads on our tires. We're ready to go. Anyway, let me take care of a quick little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already checked out our merch page, please check it out. We have some great swag, and it's a great way to support the show and get you some good stuff in the process. And as always, we have our QR code in the upper left-hand corner here, all show. If you feel like supporting the show, we'd love to have your help so we can keep bringing you great entertainers, authors, and artists. And I tell you what, as always, anyone who supports the show through our tip function will get a free copy of my short story on Barnes & Noble, the first in the series of my short stories. So I'm looking forward to giving away some good stuff. So I hope everybody has a cocktail, can sit back and relax with the show. Our great guest coming to you from Jacksonville Beach, Florida. She's an incredible lady, a depth psychologist and author, and maybe I'll even get some free analysis this show. It's going to be scary. But ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the stage, Deborah Lukovich. Deborah, thanks so much for joining us. I'm so glad you're with us. You coming to us from the beautiful west coast of Florida, Jacksonville Beach, huh?
Jacksonville Beach, yes. After leaving my hometown of Wisconsin, I went down there a couple of years ago to do my midlife journey thing. I left for a year, and I'm heading back down there. So yeah, can't wait.
Big weather difference, huh? I know we love it down here.
Oh yeah, I'm a beach gal.
Oh, that's it. Well, I tell you, Deborah, it's been so great getting to know you on X. You're a wonderful member of the writing community, and great to have conversations with and interact with, and I tried to explain to everyone briefly in your introduction, all the great prolific work you do from being a depth psychologist to a podcaster to an author, and but I'm sure I don't do you justice, and we're definitely I want to talk so much about your work, but first we want to get to know you. Come on, tell us a little bit. Start with your childhood trauma and work your way up. No.
Oh my gosh. Oh, really this part of my life and what I'm doing. I say that I'm on a mission to grow a movement of self-reflecting humans. That's kind of my new overarching mission, which is different from the past. And it all sort of flowed out of my midlife unraveling, or if you want to call it a crisis, where my life was falling apart. And my psyche really had to do some dramatic things so that I would put my attention where it needed to go. And as my life started falling apart, and my business and my marriage, I made the first irrational decision I ever did in my life. And I pursued a master's PhD in depth psychology for unknown reasons. Didn't know what it was for, didn't know what was going to happen until just recently, the last couple of years. So I, for a while, before I knew what I was going to do with it, and before I have this new mission, I considered it expensive therapy because I lived all the depth psychology concepts, Carl Jungian concepts, and in real time. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
and I tell you, I'm getting at the age where do you prefer to call it? Is it better psychologically to call it a midlife unraveling, or can we stick to crisis? Is this where I get to get my convertible, or?
So when people do have that moment in life, often some people aren't able to sort of do the work or don't have the self-awareness to turn inward, so they turn outward. So many times there's an affair, or there's, buying the red sports car, or whatever it is. And those are okay things to do. And then other people turn inward. And then instead of sort of taking their patterns into their next relationship or into their next job, they begin down this journey of what Carl Jung calls individuation, which is coming into closer, deeper relationship with yourself, capital S self, which is not your ego self, your mind, but it's the part of you that's like, it knows more about you than you do. And it tries to prompt you to grow, and will orchestrate really interesting situations to see if you'll learn the lesson that's being presented. And if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, well, I find that interesting that from your professional point of view, since we're talking about it, is there's a lot of negativity that surrounds that kind of phase in life generally, your family members or your children, as you get older and they're adults at this time or whatever. Do you find that, is it a wholly negative thing, or is it something positive?
No, you just said an interesting word. You said holy, but you meant holy in a different way. And that reminds me of the word sacred. So we're all a big bottomless pit of unknowns about us. In fact, even science affirms that up to 90% of who we are is influenced by mysterious unconscious forces. So our personality quirks, our psychological type, who we're attracted to, our patterns of thinking and behaving, and all of that stuff is really influenced by unknown forces. So whatever decision you're making, you don't really truly know the hidden agenda that your unconscious has, what your unconscious is sort of trying to accomplish through the relationship, for example, or through the job or whatever it is. So I guess when I had this moment in class, when I was in my master's class, and I had this crisis of realizing that I didn't truly know my true motivation for anything. And it was kind of mind-blowing and freaky at the same time. But then I thought, okay, that makes me really interesting. And so now it's like exploring my unconscious, I will be doing for the rest of my life. And it's like an Indiana Jones adventure. So add also a little sprinkle of humor, because I had to develop a new sense of humor to get me through the rough times. And I had to tell myself things like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to come out stronger. Or one day I said, oh my gosh, I'm living that movie, the one where I'm married to an alcoholic, and I didn't even know he was an alcoholic, and neither did he until it all came crashing down. So, instead of looking at it as negative, it's like more that it's instructive. So what am I supposed to be learning about myself?
Well, and I find that interesting that you, launched into this phase of learning and career based on, what happened in your personal life and as it developed. That's an interesting take. I assume it helped.
Well, I was led. When I said I made the first irrational decision in my life, I meant it. I had this little moment of surrender. And I remember I write about it in my memoir that's coming out soon, where it was just, I was with my family taking a walk, and we were walking to our little downtown, and it started raining, and everybody was like, oh, let's go back. And I was like, no, this is like romantic. It's summer. Let's walk in the rain. And in that moment, I felt something familiar that felt really exhausting. So I'm like, I'm going. And we ended up walking into an old fashioned pharmacy, and I picked up a issue of Yoga Journal. And that night in the bathroom, I was paging through it, and I paged to the back, and I saw this logo for a program, a program in depth psychology, a master's PhD. And I was like, what is that? I don't even know what it is. I've heard of Carl Jung, but I don't know what depth psychology is. And it just like, it was a synchronistic event. And I knew that I had to figure out a way to do it. And I knew that conversation wasn't going to go well with my husband at the time. And it really was a tipping point. But I knew that it was the answer to some kind of question. I didn't know what the question was. I just knew it would save my soul.
Yeah.
So that was the first time in my life that I followed this urge, this yearning that didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't know how I would do it. All I knew was that I needed to do it.
Yeah, well, explain to the rest of us when you say depth psychology, exactly, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it focusing on?
Yeah, so depth psychology is the study of the unconscious. So some of your viewers and listeners may be familiar with Carl Jung, C.G. Jung. He is one of the founders of depth psychology. So if you've heard of words like Myers-Briggs, do you know what the Myers-Briggs personality inventory is? That is actually Carl Jung's. That's based on his psychological types theory. So Myers and Briggs, the mother-daughter, they just basically took his theory and they created a commercial product out of it. So complexes like, oh, you have a money complex or a mommy complex. That's a Jungian term as well. So people are more familiar with depth psychology than they think they are, or working with dreams. Understanding that the images and dreams are trying to communicate something to you from your unconscious, but they're not to be taken literally. So working with dreams and finding meaning in them, usually people aren't very good at it because they take them too literal. So also the thing about depth psychology is that it's a spiritual psychology. It's in alignment with the root of psychology. So if you Google, what is the root and origins of psychology? It is breath and soul. Yeah. But you wouldn't know that today because everybody's obsessed with the brain and neuropsychology. So depth psychology is circling back to the root of psychology, which really is soul. And so as you come into deeper relationship with yourself, your capital S self, that's a spiritual experience. And the capital S self part of you is the bridge to the divine. So, and the quantum realm. Or nature, I like or that. Whatever you think is bigger than you.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. So do you find, is that what you transfer into your coaching? Because I know we had talked a little about, the coaching work. What you have over there, that looks good. What are we drinking for cocktails and Cav?
Yes,
Cosmo?
Cheers.
My
cheers. Cosmo. Wonderful. Mine's prettier than yours is.
Yes, much better. But yeah, is that where your coaching comes in from, and how you try to help people develop that?
Yeah, so people come to me with all the same issues as they will go to a therapist or a coach, and I'm kind of both. I'm kind of in between. I am not a licensed therapist. I don't have a clinical background, and I'm glad. They probably kicked me out. They probably kicked me out of that.
Well, how does that make you feel? Those people that just sit in a room, how does that make you feel?
Because I don't like to be conventional. So conventional therapy is very much in the mind. Even talk therapy just stays in the mind. So my framework for working with my clients is inviting their unconscious to the table, to the conversation, because the mind, by the time they come to me, it's like they're stuck on a hamster wheel.
Right.
Otherwise they wouldn't need me, right? So what my sessions feel like is no matter what their issue is, the first part of my session, we start with the mind. So they might say, oh, I want to talk about this, or I just had this conflict with my mother, or I can't, find a relationship that will last or is satisfying, or I'm sick of the corporate world. I want to get out of here, but I don't know what my options are, whatever it is. So we might start with what they think they should talk about. And that's just their ego saying, here's what I think my problem is. And then we'll go right to dreams. Uh-huh. So if they dream, we'll pull up a dream, and usually our first session, by then they've had a dream that often acts as a blueprint for our journey. We don't know what it means yet, but you can get a sense that, it's leading us. So dreams are forward looking, and they bring us insights that we need in order to move forward. But dreams use the language of the psyche. The unconscious is the image, and it speaks in symbols and metaphors to get around the ego, because the mind is protective and defensive. So we begin to work with dreams. Well, what if they don't dream? Well, we can work with emotions. When you have a disproportionate emotion, if you're mad at something, you're not mad at what you think you're mad at. You're mad at something very old, usually in childhood. So that's when we might actually go back to childhood. Synchronicities, psychological type, all sorts of ways. Films, obsessions. So if you think you have OCD, usually obsessions and OCD is a way to keep you grounded in a really chaotic situation. So these are all ways our unconscious speaks to us. And then the last part of my sessions are devoted to what Carl Jung calls active imagination. So we'll do some breath work and some body work and check in with the mind. And then we might say, let's say someone had a dream where there's a hole in the wall and they didn't go through and they didn't look through it. So we might go into active imagination and slip back into the dream. And I'll say, you want to look? And they'll say, okay, let's let your imagination take you through the hole in the wall and see what's there. And so it's almost like continuing a dream state, but you're more aware than you are in the dream state. So my sessions, those are sort of the three pieces to them. And and sometimes also body work as well. I will say that the insights that are gained by working with the unconscious are so much faster than working with the mind. All of a sudden, my client will be like, oh, or there's tears, and I'm there, and I'm like, there you go, girlfriend, you just got there.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Because the conscious mind just puts up all kinds of roadblocks. Obviously,
it's just protective.
Sure, and I guess is my alter ego supposed to be a drunk divorced clown? Is it something I should seek help with? No.
Well, we all have characters in our psyche, and they all jostle for attention. So the parts of you that are seeking to be expressed, but you don't want them to come out, they'll find a way out. And sometimes it will be in a dramatic fashion or even in a destructive fashion if we're either not aware of what we're not aware of, or we're like, no, I can't do that. That's the wrong thing to do. No, my kids need me. I don't have time for that. And then all of a sudden you'll find yourself doing something kind of crazy and getting swept up in it. And that's your unconscious's way of saying you have been ignoring a part of you, and sometimes we'll overcompensate.
So if you recognize those parts, it's like, I like this on Cocktails with Cav. I'm getting free therapy.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I think is it important to get to know those parts and so you can focus them in a more positive direction and let them come out, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons to come into relationship with different parts of yourself. Sometimes we don't even know like what's down there. So not only in our unconscious or our shadow are there difficult things, right? Like trauma, traumatic memories, things that we don't want to, know about ourselves or admit about ourselves. Also our potential, right? So let's say we loved art as a child, but we were told you can't make a living being an artist, or you're not good, or whatever it is. And so sometimes there's a part of us that is in the unconscious that is a great part of us. It's like I, as part of my midlife unraveling and reconstruction, I call it, what drove it was reconciling two things that were at war with me, in me, sexuality and spirituality. And when I reconciled that over time, I unleashed creatively. I wrote a short story. I wrote a book. I created a podcast. And so when you come into deeper relationship with these other parts of you, it is for the purpose of contributing to humanity, to the collective.
Right. And
so it's not just about you.
And looking at your website, it's a beautiful website. And I assume
I did it myself.
No, it's fantastic. But is this? I know you had spoke about your memoir coming out, and is there anything on your website in reference to your new memoir? Because we like to get scoops here on Cocktails with Cav. Yeah, if you go to the writing tab, it talks about my memoir. And then I also have a couple of blog posts that let people know sort of what's the story behind it. And I'm always looking for new launch team members too. But it's called
When Sex Meets God, a midlife story. And it really came out of my research. So my PhD research looked at women's experience of reconciling sexuality and spirituality through a Jungian theory of individuation. And then as soon as I sent my draft of my dissertation, out came 50,000 words that were the beginning of my memoir. And it included all the juicy stuff that wasn't proper to put in my dissertation.
Right. So, do tell, because Cocktails with Cav, we do juicy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So all the juicy stories about sex and God and spiritual orgasms and all kinds of stuff are in that memoir. So I'm finalizing it now, and I'll be launching it in the next couple of months. So yes, I think on my website, there's a tab that says writing, and there's information there. And then I also have a short story on my store. It's called The Fantasy. And my first book, though, after achieving my PhD in depth psychology, was more of a nonfiction book. It's this one over here. It's called Your Soul is Talking. Are You Listening? And in that book is kind of like an introduction. Yeah, there it is. This book is an introduction to all the ways that your unconscious speaks to you. And actually, if people don't want to buy it, it is in a Kindle version, they can listen to me read all the chapters on my podcast for free. And my podcast is called Dose of Depth. So they can check out like a chapter here or there if they want. And then if they want to buy it, it's good to have the hard copy or the paperback because you can make notes in it. But so that was sort of my nonfiction and introducing people to all the different ways your unconscious speaks to you. And then I teach them in that book ways that they can explore their dreams or understand their obsession with a Netflix series or whatever it is. So
awesome.
And then this book I've been working on for 3 years. So it's my personal story. So it's entertaining, it's juicy. It's also like memoir, it's written as a novel though. So you could read it and not know it's based on my real life. I've tried to really write it as a novel, but you can kind of feel like there's meaning, and I'm sort of sharing these things, my journey, what I'm learning through my journey. And so, yeah, I'm excited. It's almost ready to go.
Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, you're thinking about end of first quarter on the memoir?
Yes, March.
We'll definitely be looking forward. You got to promise to come back on when you launch it.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you.
I can read from parts of it too. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, just skip to the juicy parts. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about sex and God. So if people go to my website and at the bottom, if they subscribe, then they're on the list. So they'll get like links to all my free content, including podcast episodes and blog posts and updates on where I am with the memoir launching.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, please. Hopefully, they can everybody can go straight to it. With the QR code that's been up all show, hopefully they'll visit and subscribe. And I know I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully definitely want to invite you back on when your memoir launches.
Awesome.
And I tell you, Deborah, I am so glad you came on and agreed to come on because I was so intrigued by your work. And like I said, the coaching and the podcasting you do and I'm so glad that your website has those links as well to listen to the podcast and the chapters, like you said, because that's some good work. But
thank you.
Everybody, please, Deborah is so much fun and so knowledgeable and just a pleasure to interact with on X. Please go give her a follow at Deb Lukovich. Her handle's right there on the screen for you. And by all means, like we said just a few minutes ago, please go visit her website. The QR code will take you straight to it. It's deborahlukovich.com, and it has all her great social media links as well as her links, and we're looking forward to that memoir coming out. So we're going to hold you to it, that's for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Deborah, did we miss anything you want to talk about? Because I tell you, I love the discussion, especially on the psychological end, because Lord knows I need help, but no.
Well, I mean, I think I would leave people with this, that everyone is an expert at their unique experience of being a human being. It's all just interesting. We're all just we all have our own story arc. And sometimes when we look inside, we can really appreciate the story that our life is living, or sometimes our life is meant to answer a question our ancestors didn't get to answer. So there's meaning in all of it. There's meaning in the trauma. You know, when you think about what's in the ointment, the prescription, there's a little bit of the wound, of the injury, of the illness in the prescription, right? The salve.
Right.
To heal. And so there is meaning in whatever that trauma is. And that meaning often can bring a new sense of purpose out into the world. And it is true that when we feel that we're contributing in some way, it really is part of, we feel more fulfilled, right, than if we're just worried about our own lives. So that's what I would leave people with, is that no matter what, you're super interesting and you have a juicy story. And your unconscious wants to create too. We just don't know how it will manifest. You may create a new relationship. You may create a new business. You may create a writing or a poem, or some of my clients, usually my clients end up creating in some way, even if it's just to journal a story that no one sees. Mm-hmm. But they've created something out of their self-reflection. So yeah, everybody's super interesting to me.
That's awesome. And so you do take clients still for the coaching and
yes.
How would someone get you?
So on my website, there are lots of little bars that say schedule an exploratory chat here. And that'll take you to my profile on heal.me, where you actually can just go in there and schedule a free 30-minute exploratory chat where we just see if this is right for you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, good.
Very easy.
Well, I'm glad we have that link up. Again, everybody, please go visit Deborah. And if you want to explore coaching with Deborah as well, because that sounds fascinating. I know I'll probably be on a couch with a cocktail like, Deborah, I need some more help.
The way that I do it is really a lot more fun too than conventional therapy or coaching.
Awesome. Well, Deborah, again, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to come on and sharing your line of work with us and what's coming up with your memoir. We're looking forward to it in March. So again, please come back and see us then. And everyone, please follow Deborah.
I will.
Follow her on X. Much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm holding you to it. It's recorded.
Definitely. I love it. I'm a talker.
That's it. I love it. But follow Deborah on X. She is a wonderful person to get to know, at Deb Lukovich. And again, please go visit her website. Check out all her great work and her podcast. The QR code will take you straight to her website, DeborahLukovich.com. Deborah, again, with your beautiful Cosmo, much better looking drink than mine.
Cheers.
Cheers, and thanks so much for coming on.